I'll answer a bunch of Q&A from you guys. So any questions you have, just email them throughout the presentation to info@assetprotectionattorneys.com, and I will be happy to answer them. Also, if you find today educational and useful, and you guys happen to be a member of any group, and you think that the group would benefit from hearing me speak, we travel across the country and would be more than happy to present to anybody on asset protection. Certainly just give us an email. So, to get started, what we're going to do today, just a little overview of today's presentation. We're going to do an overview of asset protection and, of course, definition of asset protection. And I always like to start all of my presentations just with some basics, because I'm a big believer that, before you get into any specifics, you really need to build at least some sort of a foundation. We'll also talk about a discussion of the special risks that doctors and medical professionals face with respect to their assets. We'll do an overview of the financial exemption planning and how to use it in your asset protection planning. And we'll also talk about how to ensure that your real estate remains safe from any of your medical liabilities. We'll talk about using TBE or tenants by entireties for asset protection, and also how your practice affects your asset protection over time. We'll briefly touch on captive insurance companies as well towards the end. So just to get started, a lot of people say, what is asset protection? And, my definition of asset protection is the legal process of titling both your personal and business assets to put them beyond the reach of future potential threats and creditors. And I'll repeat that again because it's a long definition. Asset protection to me is the legal process of proactively titling both your personal and business assets to put them beyond the reach of future potential threats and creditors. And what we do as asset protection attorneys is we help our clients protect any asset they have from any financial threat. So our clients might be business owners, doctors, professional athletes. They might be people who inherited money, just got divorced, financial planners, CPAs, attorneys, really anybody who doesn't want to lose what they worked their whole life to obtain. And the type of assets we're helping them protect might be as simple as checking, savings, stocks, bonds, CD, money markets, brokerage accounts. Might be their real estate, their cars, their planes, their boats. Might even be shares in their corporations or membership interests in their LLCs. Really anything that they worked so hard to obtain. And we're helping really protect them against any financial threat, but mainly it's lawsuits, car accidents, short sale foreclosure deficiencies, premarital planning, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people always ask is, do I have enough assets to protect? And the short answer is yes, but, I really tell my clients, the less you have, the more protection you need. And I always like to give the example, take one of our professional NFL athletes, who signs for $50 million. Well, if they get sued for $5 million, certainly they're not going to be happy, but they're still going to have $45 million left. They're going to be okay. Contrast that with the average Joe, maybe someone who saved up a couple $100,000 over their lifetime. If they get sued for $1 million, they're going to be totally wiped out. It's going to be irreversible and probably impossible to return from that situation. Also, once in a while, we do meet people who have put an asset protection plan together. I always encourage them to have the plan looked over. A lot of times people just have an estate plan, but they think it's an asset protection plan. Probably one of the biggest misconceptions. Other people who do have an asset protection plan could always use a second set of eyes and ideas. So if you already have an asset protection plan, don't be deterred. Certainly have an asset protection attorney review it. So a lot of people say, well, why do I need asset protection? And I like this cartoon that we found a while ago. It's in the upper right-hand corner, and it's two lawyers talking. And one says, I say Sue. The other one says, anyone in particular. Now, when I say that, a lot of people laugh, but unfortunately it's not funny. Just like you and I get together, on a month, one webinar a month on asset protection and one webinar a month on estate planning. Well, the lawyers get together, but they probably get together more often, maybe on a weekly basis. And they're talking about, who can they sue? Is it going to be the drug manufacturers, the business owners, et cetera, et cetera? There's over 100 million lawsuits every single year, and that number is growing. So unfortunately, in today's economy, so many people are losing their jobs. The people who are keeping their jobs, unfortunately, are making less and less. Lawsuits are truly becoming the next biggest business. You can go to almost any single corner and hire an attorney for free, on what's called a contingency fee basis, which means they only get paid, if they collect for you. And essentially, it costs literally nothing to sue someone, but it's very, very expensive to defend. There's a 1 in 4 chance you'll be sued in the next year. The average person and company is sued 5 times over their lifetime. So if you have an S-Corp or you have an LLC, you're sued on average 5 times, and your company is sued on average 5 times. Now, of course, we have clients that have never been sued, and I also have clients who get sued literally dozens of times a month. So these are just the average stats. Also, a lawsuit can cost you tens of thousands of dollars even if you win the case. We talked about it. Unfortunately, our society makes it so easy to sue somebody, but so difficult and expensive to defend a lawsuit. So even if you win a case, you might have spent tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, defending the case. So really, you're a loser, even though you won the case. What I tell my clients is the trick is not making money, it's keeping it. It's far easier to make money than to keep the money. And the challenge that I give to all my clients is that for every 60 minutes you spend making money, spend 60 seconds thinking about how to protect it. So a lot of people say, well, what about liability insurance? Isn't that enough? And, I tell my clients, buy as much insurance as you can because it's cheap and it helps you sleep at night, but understand that it's not the end-all, be-all. Insurance companies are here to make a profit. If they paid every single claim, they'd be out of business. And the insurance companies down 95 in Florida, or I'm sure in any state, will see that the big buildings usually bear the name of the insurance company on top. And that's not because they're paying everybody's claims. Unfortunately, the stats are that about 70% of lawsuits are not covered by insurance. My father always used to say, the big print giveth, the small print taketh away. Anybody with an insurance policy knows that there's about a half a page of what's covered and about 100 pages of what's not covered. Your coverage may be inadequate. What if you have $100,000 of coverage on your house or your car, but you're sued for $500,000? Who do you think has to come up with the rest of that money? Your insurance might go bankrupt. Now, if I would have said that years ago, you guys would have laughed me out of the room. Today we have Fortune 500 companies and banks going out of business. Who's to say that the insurance companies won't be next? Also, insurance doesn't cover other uninsured financial risks and divorce. And it's actually funny, I was Googling that. There is actually a company now that offers divorce insurance, so who knows what will be next. Again, what I say to my clients is insurance alone is not the answer. You need your own asset protection plan to supplement your insurance. I call it the belt and suspenders approach. You want as many layers, as many firewalls as possible, protecting yourself from any potential creditors. 3 maxims of asset protection. Number 1, protect yourself before you have a problem. I never understood why people couldn't understand this. You have to be proactive. You have to protect yourself before something happens. You can't buy car insurance after an accident. You can't buy health insurance after you get sick. And your estate certainly can't purchase life insurance after you pass away. So make sure that your asset protection plan is done proactively. Also, start with a very basic plan and add firewalls as needed. As your personal and business assets grow, your plan can grow. As your education for asset protection grows, your plan can grow. Don't try and start off by doing everything at once. And probably most importantly is don't look for a magic bullet or one right plan. Everybody's personal and business assets are different. Everybody's potential threats and potential creditors are different. So what might work for you might not work for me and vice versa. But certainly don't look for a one-size-fits-all plan. You need a plan that's individualized and customized and tailored to your individual needs. 5 killer mistakes to avoid. Number 1, don't hide your assets. Asset protection is not about hiding, it's not about secrecy. With a good asset protection plan, you should be able to tell anybody where your assets are. They just shouldn't be able to get to them. So any plan that's based on hiding and secrecy, really not a good plan. I tell all my clients, prepare that at some point you'll have to divulge what you have, because if you're sued and you lose, they can ask you in deposition under oath what your assets are, and certainly you never want to lie. You always want to be legal. You always want to be ethical. Never title your assets to straws. So many people walk in my office and say, oh, well, I'm being sued, but don't worry, Mr. Presser. I've titled everything to my best friend or my brother-in-law. I look them in the eye and say, what actually makes you think that your best friend or your brother-in-law has less financial problems than you? I've seen it before where someone's titled the assets to their best friend. The best friend gets sued, and the creditor takes the client's assets. Similarly, I've seen where a client comes in and titled everything to his best friend. Best friend gets divorced, and the best friend's wife or husband takes all the assets. So you never want to title all of your assets to your straws. Don't ever title all your assets to your spouse. So many doctors and physicians do this. They feel that the spouse, maybe the wife or the husband, whoever the non-doctor is, has less liability. Well, nobody's immune from liability. Nobody gets up in the morning and expects to get sued. So what makes you think that the wife can't get in an accident taking the kids to soccer practice? Don't go titling everything to your spouse. You never want to commit a fraudulent transfer. The definition of a fraudulent transfer is when you have a present or potential lawsuit, you transfer assets out of your name for less than fair market value, and as a result, the creditor doesn't get paid. So like we talk about, you always want to do things proactively. And lastly, you never want to break any laws. We do both domestic and international asset protection, and it's very important, especially when it comes to international asset protection, that you fill out all the proper reporting requirements with the Treasury Department, the IRS, etc. So again, always make sure everything you're doing is ethical and legal. So a lot of people say, why doctors and medical professionals are especially susceptible to lawsuits and claims on their assets. Well, number one is just common sense. They are deep pockets. The doctor makes more than the average person. So people just look at doctors as wealthy. And even if a doctor is not wealthy, unfortunately, they're perceived to be wealthy. So the mere fact that they have MD after their name increases the chance of a lawsuit. A lot of times medical malpractice insurance is not always enough. Again, it's different in every state. I know in Florida it's very, very expensive for medical malpractice insurance. Also, they'll only cover you up to certain limits. So what if you have insurance up to $500,000, but you're sued for $1 million? You'd still have to come out of pocket, another $500,000. There might be gaps in coverage. And also, a lot of times, unfortunately, when things don't turn out the right way, we see a lot of malpractice claims. Unfortunately, probably doctors make up of maybe 30 or 40% of our clients because we see so much lawsuits against them. So there's a lot of things you could do. There's financial exemption planning. And if you go to our website at www.assetprotectionattorneys.com, on the left side, you'll see a list of all the financial exemption planning. And we'll talk about this a little later. But you can use exemption planning to protect your assets. So states, different assets are protected. For example, in Florida, your primary house is protected. Your life insurance is protected. Your annuities are protected. Your wages are protected. Florida just happens to be a great place to live if you're going to be a debtor. Well, it's not the same in every state. For example, in Florida, your life insurance is protected 100%. Contrast that with, I think it's Georgia, they're only protected about $4,000. So you definitely want to go online to www.assetprotectionattorneys.com. On the left-hand side, look for the financial exemption planning. Look up your state and see what is and what isn't protected. And then, of course, there's different exemptions, whether it's federal or state. And we'll also talk about how financial exemption planning fits with asset protection. And the reason that it fits so well is that these exemption planning, and again, we'll talk about this in more detail in a little bit, but they're just lists of assets that happen to be protected normally by state law. So Florida has different exemptions than New York. New York has different exemptions from New Jersey. And even if you've looked at it, if you ever move, everything could change. So you want to pay special attention to the exemption planning. Again, you can look at assetprotectionattorneys.com and see a list from your state. What I want to do today is just kind of go through some of the more common exemptions. And I'll talk to you today from a Florida point of view because I happen to be in Florida. But again, feel free, go on our website, and this could be totally different for your state. Accounts, 401ks, IRAs, SEP, Roth, etc. They're all protected. Also, the homestead is protected. This means that if you're in Florida and you're a Florida resident, your primary house is protected. So it doesn't matter if your house costs $100,000, $1 million, or $10 million. In Florida, your house is protected from all creditors. Now, of course, there's a few exceptions. If you don't pay your taxes, well, the IRS can take your house. They're what you called a super creditor. Number two, obviously, if you have a mortgage on your house and you haven't been paying your mortgage, they can obviously take your house. And lastly, if somebody comes to do work at your house, puts in a new kitchen, puts on a new roof, well, if you don't pay them, they could take your house. Besides that, nobody can go after your house. So it's a really great place to put your money. Now, of course, there's a few nuances. For example, if you live inside of city limits, your house has to be on less than a half an acre. If you live outside of city limits, your house has to be on less than 160 acres. Also, if you're ever pushed into involuntary, federal bankruptcy, if you haven't lived in your house for 40 months, then your house is only protected up to, it's about 140, 150,000. It keeps changing. The rationale there is what was happening is maybe someone would be sued in New York, a big CEO of the company, and right before there was a judgment against him, he'd move his residency to Florida and buy a $10 million house with all his money, and then the creditors would not be able to get his money. That's why the federal bankruptcy law was put into place to essentially say, hey, if you haven't lived here for 40 months, well, we're not going to protect the full value of your home. If you're not pushed into bankruptcy, your house would be protected, but if you're ever pushed into bankruptcy, if it ever goes that far, only 150 plus or minus thousand will be protected unless you've lived there for more than 40 months, in which case all of it would be protected. In Florida, life insurance is protected, so you can have a whole life policy with a cash value of $50,000 or $500,000. It doesn't matter. All of your money in life insurance is protected as a Florida resident. Now, again, this is different in every state, so make sure you go to our website at assetprotectionattorneys.com and look up your state. Annuities are protected in Florida, so any money you invest into an annuity is totally protected in Florida. Also, college savings plans and wage accounts. Wage accounts are pretty interesting. In Florida, if you're the head of the household, so that means you have at least one other dependent, whoever brings in the more money, the higher earning spouse, all of their wages are protected for 6 months. So there's things you can set up, wage accounts to make sure that all of your wages are protected. So again, these I'm just running through them pretty quickly, but retirement accounts, homestead, life insurance, annuities, college saving plans, and wage accounts, those are the most things that are usually protected, and again, they're different in every state, but definitely take a look at our website and you'll be able to see what is and what isn't protected in your state or where you're potentially planning to move. Moving right along, talking about protecting your real estate. Your real estate is in danger if it's in your personal name, and anybody who has any real estate other than their primary home should never be in their personal name, and that's for 2 reasons. Number one, if you have a piece of real estate in your name and you're sued, well, they can take your real estate because it's an asset of yours. Probably even more scarier is if the real piece of real estate is in your personal name and, God forbid, someone gets injured on the property. Maybe it's vacant land and, people are just, playing sports on your land. Maybe there's a party and someone slips and falls, whatever it may be. They're allowed to sue the owner of the land. And if you are the owner personally, you're going to be sued for all your personal assets. So as long as it's not your primary home, you should never have any real estate in your personal name. There's a lot of different things you can do, but one example that I talked about today is the LLC. You can put your property in what's called a domestic asset protection LLC. Now you got to make sure it's set up correctly in the right state and it's anonymous, and that you have a good operating agreement with all the asset protection clauses and all the anti-creditor clauses. Otherwise, it won't be as protective for you. But you can put the real estate in the LLC. Now, if you're sued, you don't own the real estate. The LLC does, so nobody can take it. Now, if somebody's injured on the property, they're only allowed to sue the owner. The owner is the LLC, which means they sue the LLC and not you. Also, you can layer it. I mean, you can have property held in LLCs. You can have LLCs owned by limited partnerships. You can have limited partnerships owned by international trusts. And then you can have a mortgage on the property. So, again, there's layers and layers and firewalls that you can do. But, again, you got to find out what the right fit is going to be for you. You know, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis and say, hey, is it worth X to protect Y? Tenancy by the Entireties, great thing. Tenancy by Entireties, background information, it's only for a living, married husband and wife. So what do I mean by that? If there's a divorce, you can't do tenants by entirety. If there's a death, you can't do tenants by entirety. You have to be a living married couple. And tenants by entirety exists in about 25 different states or so. But again, Florida is one of the better states for tenants by entirety. And the reason why tenants by entirety is better in Florida as opposed to maybe some of the other states is that in most of those other states, you're only allowed to own real estate tenants by entirety. You know, contrast that with Florida where you're allowed to own anything tenants by entirety. You can own a house, you can own real estate, you can own a company, shares in a corporation, membership interest in an LLC, bank accounts, anything. And what tenants by entirety does is it gives you some degree of protection. Essentially what it states is that the liabilities of one spouse will not be subject to the assets of both spouses. So I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example with money, but understand this could be with anything. Husband has $50,000 in his account. Wife has $50,000 in her account. If the husband sued, they could take every single penny. If the wife sued, they could take every single penny. If the husband would have took his $50,000 and the wife would have took her $50,000 and put it in one account, well, if the husband sued, the creditor can't take one penny. If the wife is sued, the creditor can't take one penny. The only way they can go after that money is if both the husband and wife are sued. So again, it's not the end-all, be-all, but it doesn't cost anything, maybe an hour of a lawyer's time to tell you how to title things correctly, but you definitely want to take advantage of that extra layer of protection, tenants by entirety. Now, you don't want to title everything tenants by entirety. For example, you would never want to title a car or a boat tenants by entirety. And those are because those are not safe assets. Those are liability-producing assets. You know, if you titled a car tenants by entirety, and the husband was driving and there was a car accident, well, whoever got hit can sue the driver, which is the husband, and the owner, which is the husband and the wife. And if they can go after the husband and the wife, they can go after everything else that the husband and wife own tenants by entirety. So it's always important to know when you can use tenants by entirety and when you can't. To kind of talk about asset protection over time, you know, you want to start off with some very basic asset protection techniques. Maybe you need a couple LLCs or corporations, maybe some limited partnerships or trusts, but you want to start off very simple, start off very inexpensive. You know, you want to learn about it. And in regards to when to increase your, you know, like we talked about earlier, you know, as your assets increase, well, certainly your asset protection can increase. So as your personal assets grow, as your business and business assets grow, you can certainly increase your asset protection plan. Your asset protection plan can grow. But again, you want to start off very simple. You want to start off very inexpensive. You want to make sure that you understand everything. You know, the point of asset protection is to go to sleep at night knowing that, God forbid, something happens the next day, you know, you're not going to lose everything you had. So you want to make sure that you understand your plan, and you want to make sure that you're comfortable with your plan. You know, a lot of people ask, you know, when international asset protection is a good idea, and I just want to touch on it briefly for a few minutes. You know, there's no black and white answer of when somebody should or shouldn't consider international asset protection. I have clients who only have $100,000 or $200,000, and they spend big money setting up international asset protection plans. And their rationale is that it might be the last money they have. They might want to sleep very well at night. Who knows? I have other clients who might be worth $1 million or $1.5 million, and they don't use international asset protection. And the theory there is that's usually someone who's in their mid to late 80s. They don't drive. They don't own businesses. They don't own real estate. You know, they really have as close to zero liability as possible. But I tell my clients if you have at least $500,000, you know, a couple $100,000, you should at least inquire and become educated on international asset protection. Not to say necessarily that you should do it, but at least you should become educated. And, you know, essentially international asset protection I could speak for hours on it, but really just gives you a whole nother degree of asset protection. You can never be as protected inside the United States as you can be outside of the United States. Also, just to touch briefly on captive insurance companies, they've been becoming very popular lately. The way a captive insurance company works, to give you the 5-minute synopsis, is somebody sets up an insurance company, and it's nothing different between the captive insurance company and a real insurance company, the only difference being that you, the client, or one of your entities owns the insurance company. And they're set up for a number of reasons, but a lot of times they're set up to insure risk that might not be readily available by public insurance companies. The cost of coverage might just be too costly or expensive. You know, when you pay an insurance company, you pay them every year, and if nothing happens, they keep the money. You've just lost the money. With a captive insurance company, you pay your own insurance company, so if there's no claims, you're keeping the money. Also, there's some good tax advantages as well that you can get with a captive insurance company. They're really only for people that are doing at least a couple $1 million a year. You have to be doing big business, otherwise they don't really make financial sense. I hope you guys enjoyed the brief webinar today. We'll talk again to you guys soon.